Hello, everybody. Tommy Tables here with another genre, guys. The inestimable Lou Wasserman's Ghost and the infallible Lorn of That Park Place. And we are here on the eve of Christmas Eve to talk about probably the most Christmassy movie of them all, Die Hard, which I suppose you could say in terms of genre, it fits into the 80s action movie genre, I guess, maybe.
I would say the one man alone against the mob sort of movie, yeah.
Right.
In fact, the great quote I saw, because there were so many imitators of this genre after this movie was such a hit, Dennis Miller, of all people, said, and I quote, "If
1940s era German dictator
walked into Los Angeles and said, I figured out how to do Die Hard in a hot air balloon, he'd have a 3-picture deal."
Oh my.
And they cite, the Steven Seagal movie on the battleship and Jean-Claude Van Damme in Sudden Death against terrorists in a hockey arena. I mean, that's right up your alley, Tommy. They made so many movies like this because it was such a huge hit.
That is incredible. Well, you know what, guys? I am going to start off the show with probably what is a shocking revelation.
Uh-oh.
This is the first time I have watched this movie.
You got to stop doing this to me, man.
Better late than never, but
I swear that I do like movies, and I've watched quite a lot of movies in my time. Die Hard was always one of those movies that was kind of on my list of things to watch, and I never kind of got around to it. I was like, yeah, like for the longest time in my life, I was really huge into sci-fi. I've rewatched Terminator so many times. With Die Hard, I was like, okay, just, some stuff blows up and it's just like some random cop, and I was like, whatever. So it never really grabbed my interest too much. And every Christmas since then, I've been like, yeah, I should get around to watching this. I never have. And so it was thanks to the genre guys that I finally got off my tukis and watched it. And it was really great. And I'm kicking myself for not having seen it earlier.
Oh, that's again, better late than never. And you're obviously either not alone or lots of people wanted to see it again.
Sure.
Here, the franchise box office history of these movies is pretty damned amazing. I mean, the original came out July 15th, 1988. July, by the way, Christmas movie. And we can talk about why that is. It did 601,000 on 1,700 screens the opening week and had a total take of 83 million, which nowadays, even that would be good for a certain studio we know of and who now owns this movie by virtue of having bought Fox. Then Die Hard 2 came out on 2,500 screens with 21 million the first week and 117. Then Live Free or Die Hard. Well, no, actually, I guess the third one.
Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Die Hard with a Vengeance was 22 million the first week and 100 million on 2,500 screens. Then Live Free and Die Hard was 33 million opening week, 134 million total on 3,400 screens. And then the last one, which was... I won't even bother with. But they've re-released Die Hard, the original, now 3 times.
Yeah.
They re-released it in 2018 for a 30th anniversary re-release through Fathom, as one of these pay-per-view one-time only deals. And it made 321,000 and a total of 500,000. Then that was under Fathom. Then in 2020, Walt Disney Studios, which owned it, put it out, and it made 189 and 3.25. But then this current re-release, which just came out December 8th through 21st Century Entertainment, which is a Disney offshoot, has so far, since December 8th, made another $2 million. That's a lot of change, guys, and it explains all those imitators that we mentioned.
And it also explains why Disney has announced a reboot of Die Hard, being directed by Leslie Headland, I believe. No.
Oh, yeah, but they'll make it lame and all those other things, and it'll be interesting.
You know what? I have to say that I like watching this movie. I felt it was actually an incredibly diverse film. It was like on that subject, you had people of all ethnicities in prominent roles. You had, the Germans were the bad guys, and it was very much like I would say ahead of its time in terms of the cultural zeitgeist.
And then we find out in number 3 that the Germans are not just Germans, but
World War II German bad people.
because his brother is the bad guy, and we have a picture of him in a Wehrmacht outfit. So,
Yeah, and I think it's not really that it was ahead of its time. Diversity was all over the place in the 80s.
sure, we didn't
that's
make a point of it. Exactly.
But I do think that Mr. Takagi actually has one of the best lines in the movie, and that's when Pearl Harbor didn't work out, we got you with radio.
Yeah, that was amazing. So guys, so obviously I haven't seen the third one yet, but I understand that this is Hans Gruber's brother in the third one, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
And I should say, by the way, guys, that I saw this movie before any of you because I watched it being made.
No kidding.
The building was an unfinished skyscraper on the Fox lot, which was 8-10 blocks away from my house. And I remember every night looking out my bedroom window and watching all the pyro going off for about a week when they shot at night for the big climactic moments of the movie. And so that's now the Fox Plaza, but was, of course, the famous Nakatomi Plaza.
Wow.
Or tower. And so, yeah, I literally grew up with this movie in a way.
Oh my gosh. So obviously on screen, I guess, spoiler alert, the top of the building blows up at the end of the movie. But how was that, watching that in real life, and how many takes did they do on that?
Oh, well, like I think they shot about 4 or 5 nights because it wasn't just the stuff on the outside of the building, but all of that stuff in front of it with the armored car gizmo that the FBI brings in. And then, of course, my other connection to the movie is my buddy Reginald Johnson, who played a cop in this and went on to be a cop on Family Matters. So, there's a lot of, 6 degrees of Die Hard in my life.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Well, yeah.
Wait. It's bigger than that. Kevin Bacon, but let's go to Kevin. I forget what's the last name of the family in Home Alone, also a Christmas movie. Oh, yeah. Well, what if I told you that Bonnie Bedelia, who plays Holly Gennaro, John McClane's wife, is the real aunt in real life of Macaulay Culkin?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's a combination of strange things in this world.
Well, even more than that, my kids and I, we watched the Nutcracker on Amazon, and Macaulay Culkin stars in that. Actually, my son saw it. And he's like, "Hey, why is Kevin in the Nutcracker?" And I'm like, "That's a good question." Well,
I read one guy who said, "I'm sure at some point in the pitch meeting for Home Alone, somebody said Die Hard, but for kids."
Yeah,
because he's the solo against the bad guys in a limited atmosphere. But anyway.
That's so. I mean, just going back to what you were saying before about the cop, your buddy there. I was expecting Urkel to show up at one point and then like SWAT.
Oh well, that was years later, of course.
Yeah.
But he set the mark as the cop so good that they employed him again as a cop. This time, Chicago versus L.A.
I think something that's kind of important to have perspective on, since you never saw this originally, Tommy, is that Bruce Willis was not an action star before this movie. He was a comedic actor. And when they were trying to pitch him as an action star, a lot of people didn't take it seriously before this movie.
Well, similarly to Keanu Reeves, who was, made the transition somehow and wonderfully.
Well, Michael Keaton in Batman, right?
Yeah.
Very similar, yep.
And
I would suggest all of them had much longer careers as action stars than they ever would have as light comedy TV and movie people. So, and the other thing is that the famous tagline "Yippee-ki-yay, we can't say it on YouTube"
Mother Gosher
was entirely Willis's, because Willis grew up loving Gene Autry.
No kidding.
And that whole "Yippee-ki-yay cowboy" thing came from him. So there you go.
So
It's also I don't remember the title, but the movie's adapted from a book.
Yes.
Yes.
And so that was also kind of an interesting thing about it, is that everything afterwards I don't think had.
Oh,
any
it's
connection.
bigger than that. They made the book. This was the second book in a series. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I've got it here somewhere. But the first book in the series was a movie with Frank Sinatra. So,
really?
So you cannot the detective, a guy named it was based on a thing called Nothing Lasts Forever by a guy named Roderick Thorpe. And it was the sequel to his first book called The Detective, which was the same main character, although they changed the name for Die Hard. And it came out in 1968 with Sinatra.
I'm glad you didn't say Ocean's 11.
No, not at all. But anyway, and of course, originally the guy was named Joe Leland, and they changed it to John McClane.
John McClane.
But here's the interesting thing. I'm reading this. It says the book jacket of Nothing Lasts Forever said, quote, the setting, Los Angeles. The time, 24 hours between Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. So, the Christmas thing was in the original book. But what's also interesting is that the producers apparently said, if we make this a Christmas movie, they'll replay it on television every year at Christmas, and we'll all make more residuals.
All right. We got to address we got to address the elephant in the room here. So, I was actually having a debate with a friend of mine about this earlier today. Is this really a Christmas movie? And his point of view, his position was that you could just swap out Christmas for any old holiday and it would still not impact the chain of events. My argument was, well, they wouldn't be having that office party if it wasn't Christmas, right? So, but what are your thoughts on this, gentlemen? Is this a Christmas movie? Let's settle the debate once and for all.
Lorn?
Well, there's two factors for me. The first is that you have to listen to the soundtrack. And I think that alone tells you that it's a Christmas movie. But also the climax of the movie, after the building's all blown up and everything, because it's in L.A., obviously they don't have snow. So instead, what you get is bearer bonds falling down the snowfall.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought that was actually a brilliant idea. It gives you
absolutely.
It's a beautiful visual, and I don't think people really think about it. As you're watching the movie, you're cognizant of the fact that things are falling down, and it gives you that Christmassy feeling, but you're not really thinking about the fact that this is paper. And so I always thought that was kind of clever. And
then the second movie, of course, is in the snow, and also Christmas oriented. But I definitely think it is, on the grounds that it's a family movie. He's trying to save his wife, and he's coming out there to be with his wife and kids that he's been separated from. Certainly, they don't live in a manger. They probably live in a tract home in West L.A. But secondly, it's a movie about the power of good to overcome evil. Right. And if Christmas isn't about anything else, it's certainly about that. Not that Bruce Willis was ever going to play Jesus in his career, but still.
I would argue there's actually two redemption arcs in it, too.
Yes.
The reconciliation between John and Holly and the reunification of their family,
yes.
For briefly before the sequels. But you also have Al Powell, who I think has the more powerful redemption arc.
Yes, indeed.
He kind of gets the best climax out of the movie, and so it has some of those themes.
And the two FBI guys are the two unwise men, bringing a tank as a gift instead of frankincense and myrrh and gold.
Just when they were in the helicopter at the end, it's like, just like Saigon, and getting all gun happy. It was hilarious. But Lorn, I thought you were going to talk about the redemption arc of Ellis.
Well, I haven't looked up his IMDb page to see if he was ever in anything else. I don't know if he ever needed to be.
He did. He was also kind of a light comedy guy, as I remember. But he certainly played smarmy well, I got to tell you.
Well, if we're going to talk about that, we need to talk about William Atherton, too. Because here's a guy that is like, I feel bad for him because I know he took so much heat for shutting down the ecto containment unit in Ghostbusters. I know he just was reviled for that. But he kind of plays almost the same character here. It has to be rough when you get so typecast to just always play this jerk that everybody wants to punch.
On the one hand, it's rough. On the other hand, it's work.
And
So I mean, for him, it's the same thing as what happened to Willis. It's okay when we need, the famous story about Blazing Saddles is that they put a casting call thing out saying they wanted a singer who was quote unquote a Frankie Lane type. And Frankie Lane himself showed up and said, "Why the hell didn't you call me instead of a type?" And they said, "We thought you were dead." So, and got the gig, So,
well, wasn't he also the one of the bad guys in Waterworld, like the red-haired guy who betrayed them? He was on the atoll originally. No, okay. My love of Waterworld.
But of course, he's in the second one. Even more obnoxious than the first time.
Yeah.
While watching this time to prepare for the video, I actually looked something up that I've been wrong all these years. I was convinced that one of the thugs, I don't remember his name, I think it was Eddie. I was convinced that was Huey Lewis for years, and it's not.
No, he looks like him. You're right.
He's a dead ringer. I thought for years that was Huey Lewis.
And all of those thugs, by the way, went on to long careers as bad guys in biker movies and chop socky movies and other than, of course, Mr. Ballet. Those were the days when you could cast a Russian as a bad guy and mean it.
Here's another thing that I think is what makes Die Hard such a memorable movie is that you have, obviously, John McClane. He's got all these great one-liners. He's the stereotypical action hero. You've got Al Powell. Everybody loves Reginald Val Johnson. But you've also got, like we said, William Atherton. You've got Argyle.
Yeah.
All of these guys, they got personality. They've got character. And when they're on the screen, you want to see more of just about all of them because they're so good at playing these characters. And that's something that I don't think we're getting anymore. We're getting cardboard cutouts.
You're right.
And I think that's part of why a lot of what Hollywood's putting out is now being rejected.
Well, or at the very least, it's failing in sequels because there are no characters that you care enough about to see them a second time or a third time the way this had.
Well, it's really, really true because even today I was listening to a couple of YouTube commentary folks and whatnot, and they were speaking about Rebel Moon, and one of the comments that they made was they cannot remember any of the names of the characters in that movie. I haven't watched it yet. I probably won't because it just sounds like it's abysmal.
Yeah.
And I actually released a tweet out based on somebody else saying basically that Zack Snyder apparently made himself a Star Wars movie, but it was a Disney Star Wars movie. But I mean, all that to be said, you're right. Like, you instantly get into these characters, and they're not predictable. Like, for example, with Ellis, when he came in, the first thing that I thought when he was negotiating with the terrorist was that he's going to give away, John McClane, like Holly. John McClane's wife in order to save his own skin and whatnot, but he didn't. He still was in some way, like, he wasn't an irredeemable bastard. Like, he still protected her while trying to resolve things, even though he was a smarmy dude high on
stimulating white powder.
So that was kind of neat. I thought, like, it didn't take it. It didn't go where you thought it was going to go there.
The other thing, a lot of the others, they're people we all knew back then. They are types we all knew and reviled, and we enjoyed seeing them get their comeuppance. So, it's like, oh, good. With this song that I will mention shortly has a line about it. It was cool when they killed Ellis. So,
well, take the FBI agents, Special Agent Johnson and Special Agent Johnson. When they're introduced, there's that little, almost a throwaway line, no relation. Just that immediately makes them memorable. It takes less than 5 seconds to get that line out. And now you've got these guys framed. You know who they are. You know what their characteristics are. And it just works. And it takes a special kind of talent to make characters that just imprint on you in seconds. And I don't think that's really happening much anymore.
And I would mention that line and many others are funny because they don't play them in reaction to being funny. It's the same thing in a way that Adam West did with Batman. It's that kidding on the square where they're very sincere, and it's their sincerity that makes you laugh.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, guys, I'm looking up William Atherton right now, and I was wrong. He's not the guy in Waterworld.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
His wiki page is saying that he's showing up as Walter Peck again in the new Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
That's great. I'm glad they got it back.
See, isn't he glad he got that stereotype and got that?
Yeah. Wow.
So there you go.
That's going to be a good paycheck.
I wonder how they're going to play him in it, because it's like, will they give him a redemption arc, or is he just going to still be the same officious bureaucrat?
I don't know.
It's less about him and more about the faith or lack of it we have in the people making these latter-day sequels. They haven't done too well with Ghostbusters so far.
Well, I liked Afterlife. I thought Afterlife was pretty good.
Yes, but they first, of course, had that make it lame female abortion. So I don't know. But the other thing about sequels in this movie, if you were in Hollywood today and I said to you, listen, we have this huge box office smash, we've made 2, we're going to make the 3rd, we can cast, cheap people. Yeah. No, let's put Samuel Jackson in it, who wasn't as big as he is now, but who was pretty darn big and I'm sure expensive. And I bet there was a lot of blowback from the studio saying, well, why do we have to hire anybody that great for this? Can't we just get anybody? After all, Reggie and I forget the man's name, but Argyle, they weren't big stars, and we got them cheap, But no, let's spend the money and do it right. And, of course, he's so wonderful in that picture. So wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Jeremy Irons too.
Yes,
that wasn't a small get at that time.
And see, that was the inspiration of, wait a minute, we killed off the bad guy. What are we going to do? We can't. I know it's his brother. And again, in a way, the plot is similar in that it's, we're terrorists, but we're really here to rob the bank.
Yeah.
In fact, it reminded me. There's a great French movie that most people besides me haven't seen, called L'Aventure, c'est l'Aventure. Adventure, it's adventure. And it's about a bunch of crooks pretending to be terrorists and political people in order to rob banks. And there's one point where somebody says to Lino Ventura, what are you, Marxists? And he says, yes, Groucho Marxists. So, there's that again. And we might say, considering the massive haul in humanitarian support that certain people in the world have stolen for their own goodies, that's really going on in real life too.
Right. Well,
oops, sorry.
Go on, Lorn. Go on.
I was just going to say, that's something that I think we need to talk about this movie as well, which is that part of the fun of the movie and what doesn't make it your standard action flick is that in a lot of ways it's a cat and mouse and chess match between Hans Gruber and John McClane. Because the thing about Hans is that he knows everybody's playbook. He knows what the FBI is going to do. In fact, he's incorporated that into his plan.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes him such a compelling villain, is that he's thought through absolutely everything. And he's accounted for the fact that there are going to be things that are going to go wrong. He just is confident enough that he believes that he's planned around it all.
Yeah, the arrogance factor, but it comes from a real place rather than just ego. He comes from his intellect. And you don't expect this cop to be up to matching wits with this intellectual genius guy. But surprise, when in doubt, get a machine gun. Now I have a machine gun.
Well, I loved that line that he said near the end when he was talking to Holly, and she's like, you're just a damn crook, or you're just a thief. And he's like, yeah, and I'm a really good one.
Right. And his disdain for this, minor cop, in Dr. No says to James Bond, you are just a policeman. Why should I pay attention to you, The idea that you could beat me is ridiculous.
Gentlemen, I've just realized that we haven't actually given a synopsis of this movie.
True. Absolutely true.
So it's Bruce Willis gets stuck in a high rise and things blow up. How does that sound? No, I'm kidding.
He is the unexpected guest at the party.
Yes.
Yeah, and something that this is another clever bit of writing in the thing, is that it starts off with him arriving in L.A. on the plane, and he's obviously tense about flying. And there's this passenger next to him that takes note of the fact that he's gripping his seat rests and he's uncomfortable. And he says, look, here's what you do. when you get to your hotel, you take your shoes and your socks off, and you make fists with your toes on the carpet, and you're gonna feel it'll make all your worries and stress go away. And McClane's kind of looking at him like, okay, sure, yeah, buddy. But then when he gets to the hotel after he's had the fight with Holly, he does it, and he finds, oh my God, this is working, and he's kind of astonished by this. But that's why he's not wearing the shoes and socks later in the picture. They set that up entirely so that they could get to the place where he's extremely vulnerable because he's going around barefoot. And when the glass comes into play, it's a horror show.
Yeah. And also, I think, although it helped him as far as having the building, the idea that the building isn't finished on all those floors that he's on gives him a wonderful
playground.
It's more fun to watch than just running through a bunch of cubicles in a typical office building.
Yeah,
and not to mention all the glass to break.
But there's such a variety of scenery, right? You've got the Christmas party, you've got the office, you've got
that luxury
cards.
atrium office with the fountain, and obviously they were instantly telling you how wealthy this company was, that they were building this building and they fitted out their part first with all these wonderful things, and of course that it was not just a party, but one heck of a party with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and surprise.
The 80s. Were the 80s really like that?
yeah. But I think I may have told you, I don't remember, but the nostalgia for the past is a two-edged sword.
Rose-colored glasses, I think, is the saying.
Yeah. But anyway, the movie, the good guy wins after a lot of adversity. And the great thing also about this movie, in 99% of movies with a great villain and a great hero, they confront each other face to face in almost the entire film. This all happens over a radio, over a walkie-talkie. I mean, the two of them, and therefore, not only are the performances more important, but the writing is more important because it has to convey something that you can't physically see, which is their attitude towards each other.
Well, they do meet each other, and I thought it was brilliant the way Alan Rickman just suddenly adopted that American accent.
Yeah.
But I couldn't figure out, like, what was it that gave him away to John? I missed that part.
He was too good.
I'm not sure that he actually necessarily gave it away, but I think that John was suspicious enough that he decided that, okay, I'll give you a gun, but I'm not going to load it just in case.
Right. And also, that's the other thing about that building and that situation that helps, is that there's nobody else there but the bad guys and their fake security at the front desk and the people in the party. There aren't 27 floors or whatever. No, it wasn't that tall, but 15 floors of other people in the building. So when he comes across somebody, it's like, on the one hand, you could be the lone guy who wandered through like I am. On the other hand, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, oh, sorry, go on, Lorn.
It's one of the things that I think is kind of interesting at the very beginning of the movie when he arrives at the Nakatomi building is he's getting ready to go up to the 30th floor, and they show these mannerisms that show that, he is a cop. He's checking all of the exits. He's checking the hallways. He's paying attention to the security guard over here. And then you also have to consider this was Alan Rickman's first theatrical role. And that's kind of incredible. He was fantastic in so many movies, but I don't know if he ever eclipsed. Harry Potter fans will say Snape, but I don't know that I agree. I think his Hans Gruber is maybe the best role he ever had.
Well, and the great thing, of course, is also that we didn't know him then. And so he could be anything he chose to be for us, and he chose very, very well. He understood that intellectual bad guy, and that it was about the profit motive and about having figured out all the angles and calculated that, well, what do we do if we can't get the safe open in the first 10 minutes because the guy's scared and gives us the way to do it? Well, then we've got this guy who can crack it. And, well, then if that doesn't work, we can do this. He's got everything covered. But, surprise, a spanner in the works.
There's that scene when he's telling Takagi that you're going to give us this access code. And Takagi says, look, you're just going to have to kill me. And there's no hesitation at all. He just does it.
Right.
And I don't recall that happening in a movie before this.
No, I don't either. There's one sticking in my mind, but I can't think of what it was.
Lorna, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I still feel that his greatest role was as Dr. Lazarus.
Oh, well, there you go.
Don't get me wrong. That's an excellent role. It's one of my favorites of his, but I don't think it holds a candle to Hans Gruber. The scene when they first stride in off the elevator,
yes,
got all his thugs behind him, and the image that Alan Rickman cuts, just it's obvious that he's the boss, and he's wearing this suit, this beautiful suit.
Yeah.
And they all stride in, they fire their guns. He's completely calm. And he's got this little notebook where I don't know if he's reviewing notes of what he's about to say or whatever it is. He doesn't even raise his voice. That's how you know this guy's the boss.
Yeah. And giving him all due respect for his performance, let's remember the director, too, McTiernan, who probably had something to do with all of that.
Yep.
And should have. And didn't complain afterwards, they changed my cut. That's why the movie stinks, like a certain person nowadays.
Yeah.
But
they gave me carte blanche, and yet they cut my... Yeah, anyway. I mean, if I'd known that Alan Rickman was in this, I probably would have watched it a lot sooner, just because he is one of my favorite actors. He's just the sarcasm that he has, the dry wit. You know, when Ellis first came in and he was like sort of outlining, oh, you know, you guys are doing this, and this is the reason why you're doing this. He's like, oh, how perceptive. Oh, yeah, you got it right there. It's just so well done.
Have you seen Bottle Shock?
No, I have not.
Well, then you must, because that's another great Rickman performance, and it's a true story about how the California wines went to this big competition in France and won, and he's the guy who puts it together. And Chris Pine is in it, and Bill Pullman, and Dennis Farina. And Bottle Shock. You got to see Bottle Shock if you're at all an Alan Rickman fan and haven't.
Also, I'm betting this is another one you haven't seen because you're not a Western fan. Did you ever see Quigley Down Under?
I was about to mention that one too. Yes.
He's basically playing Hans Gruber in that one as well. But
Hans in Australia.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, this is good.
And of course, Tom Selleck is the good guy in that.
I knew that. I knew it was a Tom Selleck movie, but I didn't realize that Alan Rickman was in that as well. So here, this is Bottle Shock. I'm just throwing that up there. Dennis Farina, Chris Pine, Bill Pullman's in that too.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're all the various winemakers in Napa and Sonoma who, are happy doing their own thing and don't have any great expectations of reaching the rest of the world. But Rickman is kind of a slightly unscrupulous wine merchant and wine dealer, and he gets the idea that, you know what? If we went and we did a blind tasting against the French, we might just show them a thing or two, and they certainly do. And then there's Quigley, yes.
Quigley Down Under. There we go.
And by the way, even though he's a cowboy bad guy, he's got a great suit in that one, too.
Yes, he does.
And Ben Mendelsohn's in this one, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Mendelsohn's in Quigley?
Yeah.
That's what it's saying. Yeah, look.
I did not remember that.
Whoa,
oh, my God.
Ben Mendelsohn. Look at that.
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
Director Krennic. My gosh. Lorn,
that's incredible.
Great hats in that movie too. They're American, but they're not. They have a little bit more brim and a little bit more curl. Wardrobe is important, especially in a bad guy. Many years ago, my wife and I were able to attend the first screening of the restored version of North by Northwest, and it was great. But they had as a special guest to talk about making the movie, everybody's favorite master of disguise, Roland Hand. Why is my brain going flat? You know who I mean. Come on, Martin Landau. And he said that when he got to Chicago a few days early, when they were shooting in the train station, which was doubling for New York, and he said Cary Grant came over and gave him the number and the information on his tailor and said, have him make you some suits, because this guy's got to be a dapper guy. And therefore, it wasn't the production that made it. It was Cary Grant paid to have Martin Landau have really elegant suits to be this evil villain guy.
Wow.
So clothes maketh the man, as they would say in the.
No kidding. As they would say.
I'm having a brain fart night, guys. I'm sorry about that, but the Argyle is coming out soon. Speaking of 6 degrees, there you go, the Argyle. But the Kingsman, clothes maketh the man.
Clothes maketh the man. Yes. I wouldn't be surprised if Taron Egerton was one of these movies. No, I'm kidding. So all that to be said, then, what would you say would be the highlight of 80s action movies? Obviously you've got Die Hard, and what about some of the competitors that have that sort of, were fighting against it for the title, for the reigning championship? Like, what could hold a candle to Die Hard from that genre at that time?
I don't know if it's exactly the same genre. I mean, it's still an action movie, but I'd put Predator in there.
Yeah.
Yes, but because it's got the sci-fi context, it kind of takes itself out of the competition to me.
Okay.
It certainly has had some of the longevity, although I don't think anything's had as many movies of the same series made, good, bad, or indifferent, as this did in that period, other than the ongoing things like James Bond. I'm looking at the era. I mean, McTiernan then went on to direct Hunt for Red October, Last Action Hero, Medicine Man, Rollerball, and then, of course, he got in legal trouble because he was using a very shady security guy to spy on people in an investment scam that he got stuck in. But that's another story, I mean, by the way, Die Hard is on the list at the Library of Congress's National Registry of Films of Cultural or Aesthetic Significance.
No kidding.
So there you go. Obviously, there's more to it than a shoot 'em up.
Right. Well, that's in that list that you said, Lou, I thought Last Action Hero got a bum rap. I thought that wasn't a bad film.
Yeah, if it had made money, it wouldn't have gotten that bad rap.
Right.
But it didn't. So
yeah.
Anyway. Well, obviously, at the same period, you've got all of Arnold's movies going on.
Yeah, I was getting strong Terminator vibes in some scenes from Die Hard, like when near the end when he's coming, when you just see him in profile and he yells out "Hans" and all of that.
What sets Willis apart in Die Hard, though, is that he's a little bit more like Indiana Jones in that he gets hurt.
Yeah.
It's like Rambo and Arnie, or Stallone and Arnie, rather, they're invincible. They are the stereotypical arcade action hero where Bruce gets beat up. And I think that's what led to some of his appeal there.
Well, see, I think the hallmark of all of these guys, starting even before, but with John Wayne and certainly with Shatner and certainly Stallone and Arnold, and then Bruce Willis after this movie, they get the joke about themselves and play it rather than fight it. A lot of other stars, well, no, but I'm a serious actor. And that's the sure way to call your career quits, in my experience.
Right.
When the audience loves you for being a certain kind of guy, keep being that guy.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, going on Lorn's point, it very much is the case that throughout the movie, again, when going into this cold, not really having seen it before, my expectation was that Bruce was going to be this dyed in the wool kind of hard as nails cop, cool and composed, and he was always sort of getting through all these situations without breaking a sweat and whatnot. But he worked for it, man. He went through the ringer, and they just why am I here? Why am I doing this?
And there's some cultural things going on in the sense that just as the bad guy is very European in an American context, Bruce Willis is New York in this movie in L.A., and that's the ultimate fish out of water,
Yeah.
I remember, in fact, very close to where this was shot is the Century City Shopping Center. And you understand this entire area called Century City used to be the backlot of 20th Century Fox. And then they made Cleopatra and went broke and literally put a padlock on the gate for about a year and sold all of that land to Alcoa, who built all of these office buildings and shopping centers and the hotel, the Century Plaza, which is right across from there. Well, I remember they opened up at the food court at Century City a branch of the Stage Deli from New York.
Oh.
And they would have reunion lunches for New York expatriates of PS number whatever from New York. And I remember sitting next to a group of them one time, and they were all sitting there suntanned and happy, bitching about, in New York it's a struggle every day. Here it's too easy. And I thought, yeah, right, so go home. But nobody was going home. Well, here is Bruce Willis when he gets off that plane, he's nervous about seeing his wife and all the rest of it, but he's also very much aware that he's a fish out of water. And I think that's part of his bond with Al, is that Al is the local cop who's nothing like a New York cop either.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they made the wonderful choice in the third movie of taking it to New York. And all of those other guys, his superiors in the police force in that movie, the bomb squad, the guys trying to defuse the red liquid death machines, and of course Samuel Jackson is a different kind of New Yorker in that movie too. Mm-hmm. So it's everybody between the two coasts could have fun laughing at both sides and still enjoy the adventure, if you see what I mean.
Very true.
Tommy, I'm curious, this being your first time seeing it, did you have a particular favorite scene?
Good question.
Oh, that is a good question.
A good question for people in the comments to tell us what their favorite scene was too.
Let's you know what? I want to go back and rewatch this movie again. It was a long movie. It was over 2 hours, and but you really kind of got stuck to it. Like it really kind of engrossed you for the entire time, and it went a lot quicker than I thought it would have. Yeah. I think probably when the vault is opening and you're hearing,
DeJoy, they do the reprise.
Because that was always it was a bit of a question for me, watching the film. Like at first when he started saying, we want these, I want my freedom, my fellow freedom fighters in these various countries released, and so on and so forth. And then you're like, okay, that's what his motivation is. And then he kind of covers the walkie-talkie and says, why are you asking for these guys in Indonesia to be released? And then he's like, oh, I read about that in Time magazine, and you're like, wait a minute. So what is the motive here? So I thought that was a bit of a nice payoff. The limo driver was great. Just all of it, it was a really darn good film. And one of the things that really struck me about it was the fact that part of the how should you put it? The conceit of the film is that Bruce Willis is having just a hell of a time trying to convince the LA cops that this is a real problem and that this is like a real terrorist takeover, right? And I'm sort of sitting there thinking, if it was in this day and age, they probably would have taken it a lot more seriously, I would imagine.
Well, that's I think my favorite part about that scene is he gets so frustrated he just throws the body out the window so it lands on Hal's car. Yeah. Then he shoots it up and yells out the window, "Welcome to the party, pal."
Yep. I always iconically think of that scene of him coming through that glass window on the end of the fire hose. Yeah. That's just, But what you just said, Tom, we didn't have the terrorism proliferation that we have now, so it would have been an alien concept or more of one.
Yep.
The FBI had a terrorist group, obviously, and they show up thinking that's why. Otherwise, it's not a federal crime, by the way. I guess technically the bearer bonds would be. But, we're the pros from Dover. We're going to take over now. We know what we're doing. You provincials haven't got a clue. Surprise.
Yeah, when we co-opt your bin, we'll try to tell you.
Yeah.
But it's...
that reminds me. Who is the actor who's playing... the lieutenant Johnson? In charge. No, not the FBI guys. He played a principal in like Animal House, I think.
Not John Vernon, is it? Let's see. Wait a minute. I forget.
He's another one of those guys that you see him pop up in a lot of movies, and you know his face and you know his work, but you have no idea who he is.
You know what? Hey, chat, or the people in the comments, why don't you tell us?
Yes.
But I would also say that. Following along with what I had mentioned before about trying to convince people that this was a real threat, they use the word terrorist so many times. And again, as a product of the time, I recognize that. And then this day and age, you don't hear terrorist, the word, used quite so often. I don't know.
Are we talking about Paul Gleason? Yeah.
Yes, that's the guy.
Yeah, that's who I thought you meant. And he, of course, was also in The Breakfast Club and Trading Places. Yep. And... died in the hospital where I was born in 2006.
You know, he's great though, because even though you dislike him because he's riding Al so hard, the points that he's making aren't technically wrong.
Yeah.
You know, he's saying that Al's going on this just based on a hunch, and he's right. This could actually be anybody that we're talking to. We don't know what's going on in this building.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think this is part of what makes the movie work. You have so many great actors playing these great characters. All of these characters are fantastic. They really are the people that they're portraying in the film.
Yeah.
And casting is 99% of everything. It really is. And that's true not only in movies, but you know, you can train people
politics.
Well, no, what I was going to say is in the other realm of our channels, which is theme parks, you can train people how to flip burgers or how to work a ride, but you can't train people to be nice.
Yeah.
And they used to be a lot better at casting nice, congenial people than they are anymore.
Is true.
And then look at all the people that these movies made into stars. Maggie Q, Hart Bachner, we mentioned, Ellis, Robert Davi was even bigger after this with the Bond movie.
Alan Rickman.
Rickman, certainly. James Shigeta, of course, had been around forever, and people just sort of he was, you know, the Japanese actor for so long. Which is funny when you consider all the Chinese guys that played Japanese people in World War II movies, you know. So we were a little blind as to the differences in those days. Nowadays, I guess they'd sue you for casting somebody who wasn't. But, and that's interesting. I forgot. In which one? Selma Archard, who you've never heard of, but she's Army Archard, the famous variety columnist's wife. You want a good review? You put his wife in the movie. Just like those of you who watch old movies will see on every Technicolor movie this thing that says Technicolor consultant Natalie Kalmus. Well, her husband, Mr. Kalmus, was the head of Technicolor. So they gave his wife a credit and a check on all these movies to make him happy.
Wow.
Some of the people that were in these things, I'd forgotten. Cole Hauser is in one of them.
Wasn't that? No, wait. But Cole Hauser is the name of Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, that's no. That's yeah.
I'm kidding.
Anyway, but Cole Hauser, you know, who's made so many other pictures, Good Will Hunting and whatever, but he's in Good Day to Die Hard. Anyway, basically they had the choice of everybody they could choose, and they chose well, is I guess what we're saying overall about the casting of these movies.
So, guys, as I continue down this rabbit hole, which of the sequels would you say is your favorite?
Oh, no doubt. Hans's brother, New York. I thought the second sequel, to me, it just didn't do it. Partly because, I don't know, I'm just not a big William Sadler fan, and at that point, I don't know, he played him a little too crazy for his own good compared to, for example, Rickman and then the others.
Irons.
Yeah, Irons, and also even the young guy in the fourth one, which was a not great movie, but better than the fifth one. Oy vey. It's funny how 4 and 5 tend to be where they lose the plot, these movie series. But unless you're the Bond movies, where it took all the way to the most recent one to really totally blow it, in my opinion. But they'll start again with somebody else, and who knows?
Lorn, which is your favorite?
I would agree that Die Hard with a Vengeance is my favorite sequel in the Die Hard series, but I disagree about William Sadler. I actually like him a lot. If you want to see him in a good series that also has Tom Selleck, they did TV movie adaptations of the Jesse Stone novels.
Yes, and he's very good in those, absolutely.
Yep, he's excellent in those. So.
And I love all of those movies, and of course they also have William Devane as the Shrink in those, and those are some great things. If you haven't seen the Jesse Stone movies, which is, well, there are, 7 of them now.
There's a bunch.
Yeah, and they're all really, really good, and they're available out there with Tom Selleck playing this transplanted L.A. cop who winds up as the chief of this very small town in Massachusetts, and of course Sadler plays this elegant gay mobster, and he's wonderful in that. He's wonderful in that.
Well, guys, I think
there's one story we need to tell. We need to tell.
Okay, right.
And those of you who go to thatpartplace.com and look for my article entitled "Ho Ho Ho," or should we say "Yippee-ki-yay," talking about the re-release, we'll find the story and the link. And I don't know if we can put the link in this too. Once upon a time, what is now, let's see here, 16 years ago, there was this band I think they were in Philly or in Boston, and they called themselves Guys Night, Guyznite, and they loved the Die Hard movies. I mean, they absolutely worshipped the Die Hard movies. And so they wrote a rock and roll song, Die Hard. But they realized who would watch a video on YouTube back in those days with us singing this song? Who would care? So they entirely made a music video of the song using clips from the movies. And there's 3 verses for the first 3 movies, which is when it came out. And like I said, it begins with this lyric about it. Remember when we first met John McClane, Argyle picked him up at the plane, and it goes through the whole plot and about how it's Christmas. And the refrain of the song is yippee-ki-yay, etc., over and over again with all the clips. Well, after their song came out and became a hit, and by the way, I just looked it up again to find the link, and it now has 4.5 million views on YouTube.
Wow.
Anyway, what happened was that the studio kind of eventually realized it, and the legal department wanted to sue them because they were using all these clips from the movies without any copyright permission. Before YouTube did that sort of thing, you had to police it yourself. And they were literally going to sue these guys and make them take the video down, at which point, because they were in the process of producing at that point the 4th movie, the PR department said, no. We don't want to sue them. We want to use them. They've got a following. We've got a 4th movie in a series, and we hope it does well, but who knows, you know? So they contacted them, and they said, listen, guys, if you'll add a 4th verse about the new movie, we can't show you the whole movie yet, and we can't give you the script, but we can give you all the clips that are going to be in the trailer because we've already got those ready to go. And if you'll do that, we'll let you do that, and we won't sue you. And they said, hell yes. So if you look around on YouTube, and I'll put the link here, but it's a Die Hard music video, new 4th verse.
Well, I'll let the viewers maybe watch the entire thing.
It's just
but
plain
that's
great. Somebody made a Christmas ornament of McClane.
John in the vent?
Yeah, they're selling them on eBay all over the place now. So, and here's another one. Wait a minute. A Die Hard. The merchandise. Oh, look at this. There's a Die Hard Advent calendar, which shows Hans slowly going down the 24 floors of the tower. There's so much. I mean, look, not every movie, lots of movies become hits and lots of movies become sequels, but not everybody gets Christmas ornaments and Advent calendars made on them. So there you go. And that says something about how enduring and how, although I doubt it was in their decision, why the Library of Congress said this had historic and cultural significance.
Yeah.
Anyway, God, there's more merch on this thing. Wait a minute. What is it? Wait.
Can you guys see what I've got on my screen, on the screen right now? The picture of John.
Yeah, there you go. And of course, somebody put a life-size one up here in a building over there on the right. All you need is a box and some tinfoil and a photo. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, look. It has been a blast speaking to you both about this. It was a very great movie. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I'm going to be making my way through the sequels now. It was quite a lot of fun.
Before we go, Tommy.
Yes.
We didn't ask you. Is it a Christmas movie?
You know what? I am of the view that it is a Christmas movie. I would say because of the fact, and as I said earlier, because of the fact that you had all these people in the office for the Christmas party. You wouldn't be having an office party for Thanksgiving or for Easter or for really any other reason than, well, maybe a Halloween party per se, but not even, I don't think they would even do that. Like, and I think just for that alone, that means that it needed to be Christmas time in order for this entire setup to happen. So I would say yes, it's a Christmas movie. You can't take the Christmas out of this film.
I would say beyond that, it's about family, and every good Christmas movie is about family because he's trying to put his family back together, and indeed in the next movie, he's trying to save his wife who's on the plane.
That's true. What do you think, Lorn?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I've always thought it was a Christmas movie, but I'm glad that you came to the correct decision.
We can all agree this is not a Festivus movie, please. Or a Kwanzaa movie, or all these other crazy things.
But all that to be said, to all the...
Ooh.
Yeah,
Suddenly,
we lost you, Tommy.
I think you got caught on the plane in Die Hard 2 just now. We heard what sounded like a jet taking off.
Hello?
Yeah, you're still there.
Back.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to get out of here before I get, booted completely.
We hope you enjoyed that special presentation of The Genre Guys here on T3PO. Be sure to subscribe to this channel for more content like it, and if you want to enjoy episodes of The Genre Guys as soon as they are released, be sure to become a member at WTW Pro's YouTube channel. What were your thoughts on this amazing topic? Let us know in the comments below, and thank you for joining us here on T3PO. Please comment, like, and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to That Park Place Podcasts Online, your source for exclusive content and highlights from WTW Pro, The Pro Show, and That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.